Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of History You Didn't Know But Should. I'm Ray,
And I'm Chris.
and it is 2026. That means it is the 250th anniversary of the United States. Just last night at the college, we had a big celebration with the 82nd Airborne Band and Choir, and also a local school band. And so we're in full swing celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States. Of course, officially, it will be July 4, 2026, but people are celebrating the whole year with America's 250. And Chris, it's an exciting time to be someone who studies history, teaches history, whether online or in person. It's a very exciting time.
Absolutely, because there's so many different things that are going on. And I appreciate you starting off the podcast by talking about, 250 and instead of the official name for it, which is the Semiquincentennial.
Chris, you know me. I couldn't say that if I tried.
Well, that's what it's going to say. You can say it, can't spell it, but that is our 250th birthday. And how exciting is that? If you go and you think about there's a lot that has happened over 250 years. And what I like about it is that this theme that is going on is 250 years in the making, that there's a lot that has gone on, there's a lot that continues to go. And so I'm really excited that there is actually so many different events that are planned, that we are really trying our very best to make sure that all individuals know that how we got to this point required the old adage, blood, sweat, toil, and tears. And within all of it, America is stronger and better than ever. We still have our bumps, we still have our bruises, but I think that we are moving in the right direction. So, yes,
Go ahead and say it.
see how it was going to go right there.
You
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 tried
you
to
were you were showing off, so now go ahead.
Semiquincentennial is upon us, and it's happy 250. And if you type in Google 250 America, you get fireworks that start
Yep.
going off and so many different things. So, really, it's a great time to study history, to learn from history, and to realize just how far we've come.
Yeah, and you were talking about, where we are at this particular point in time, and it brought to mind the preamble of the U.S. Constitution, which starts, "We the people of the United States of America, in order to form a quote more perfect union." Not a perfect union, but a more perfect union. And from the time of the Declaration of Independence in July of 1776 to the ratification of the Constitution in the summer of 1788 to the end of the Civil War in 1865 to the Civil Rights Movement to today, the United States is striving to become that more perfect union. It's not a perfect union, never has been, never will be, but we're always striving, hopefully, as a nation to improve. And Chris, I was talking to someone at the college earlier today, and we were talking about some things going on in the government and all of that. And I said, yes, but you must remember that United States is not just the government, it's the people. As it says there in the preamble, we the people. So when we think about the United States, it's not just, well, I like this administration, I don't like that administration, or what have you. It's about the people of the United States who make up the United States.
Yeah, and I think, many people sometimes think about history and they think about the individuals such as Washington and Adams and Jefferson. But then you've got to think about the others that were there. What about Martha? But the workers, the individuals whose names have long been forgotten, but whose works will never be forgotten. That this is a history of individuals who have worked together to truly make America, but more importantly, as you said, the people free. Freedom of ideas, freedom to think, freedom to speak, freedom to worship, freedom to give, freedom to receive, so many different freedoms. And I really think that it is important for us to take a minute and to appreciate that which has brought us to this place. And I know that there's a lot of initiatives that are going on. I know that the White House is really getting involved in trying to make sure that all individuals really truly take a minute and study about the various things. I found it interesting that if you go to whitehouse.gov, that there is a phenomenal list of resources that basically talks about the virtual museum where you can go and see history come to life. There's YouTube videos, but there's articles, there's letters, and it's if everybody would just pledge to maybe just take 5 minutes instead of reading that article on social media, maybe just taking 5 minutes and doing a quick search on one of these websites that are out there to learn something about history of America that you didn't know but should.
Yeah, and take 5 minutes and read Article 1 of the Constitution. Then the next day, take 5 minutes and read Article 2. And just within a few days, you will have gone through not only all six articles of the Constitution, you can go through all of the amendments as well. And what a great thing to do is to learn about the Constitution by reading it. There's a lot of times people will say, well, the Constitution says it's not, well, the Constitution doesn't say anything about that. But by reading it, you become more educated, you become more knowledgeable, and I think you're helping move the country toward that more perfect union, because when we teach American history, Chris, yeah, we're teaching it because we are history nerds and we like to talk about history, but we're also teaching it because we genuinely want students to learn more about American history or world history, in your case, sometimes. We want students to learn more about what's going on, where we've been, what we've come through, and how that impacts where we are today, because it does. Everything this nation's been through impacts where we are even today.
And one of the things that we speak about is not just looking at it as America 250, but looking at the impact that North Carolina, we're here in North Carolina, and so it's important to talk about the role that North Carolina played because they had a very important role in the American Revolution, in the American movement. You mentioned the Declaration of Independence, and we have the United States Constitution. But really, what you have in April of 1776 was the Halifax Resolves, which made North Carolina the first colony to officially sanction independence. And from the mountains all the way down to the coast, you can hear the sound of America the Beautiful coming out as North Carolinians from the coast to the mountains. They joined the fight for freedom. They laid down the foundation for what it meant to be that nation of we the people. And so it's not just a date on the calendar, but it's an opportunity for us to see the challenges that these individuals experienced, to see the suffering that took place, the sacrifices, but also the beautiful results of how we have gotten to this place. Because, Ray, if I'm not mistaken, if you go and look at the history of world civilizations, when you really come down to it, there's not a Roman civilization that is still around. There's not a ancient Chinese civilization around. Many civilizations cracked and they crumbled, but America stood tall and continues to stand tall for the freedom of all individuals.
And you talk about the results. And one thing, Chris, and I know you do as well, is talk to students about the idea that none of this was ever guaranteed. That when the United States declared independence on July 4, 1776, that was just a piece of paper with some votes behind it. They had to win a war, which was an uphill battle. And once they won the war, then they had to deal with the problems that the Articles of Confederation had with the states being too strong and the federal government too weak, and then the new Constitution and trying to get the states on board for that. Nothing we have is was ever guaranteed. It was always dependent on, people who, like you said, they just pushed through and kept doing it.
And, you know, what do we say to the people who do not like history and they don't want to talk about history, much less study history? Well, use this year to help think about ways that we can celebrate the present. I know there's a lot of talk that is negative in the news. There's, a lot of political division. There's just a lot of animosity, but we live in a land of the free,
Yep.
the home of the brave, where no matter how hard they tried, enemies were not able to take down the flag of the United States of America. We have all of these things that we've been blessed with. A Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Wait. A Chick-fil-A sandwich.
A Chick-fil-A sandwich. I mean, think
I'm,
about that.
I'm going to tell you something. During Christmas, I did not know that Chick-fil-A served breakfast. So during Christmas, I met someone at Chick-fil-A and had breakfast at Chick-fil-A for the first time.
And I mean, that is just an absolute crime for you not to know that Chick-fil-A, you probably didn't know that they're closed on Sundays either.
Well, I knew that. I knew that. But guess what I had for breakfast that morning?
A chicken mini.
No, I had a chicken sandwich.
Oh, see?
See?
And there's just something about that. But
It
think
was
about
good.
this.
It was very
It was
good.
great. But you look at all of the things that we have. How many other nations have the opportunity? I'm being funny, but you go and you could choose Bojangles, you could choose Kentucky Fried Chicken, Popeyes, Chick-fil-A. You have so many different places where you can get a chicken sandwich. A lot of other countries, a lot of other individuals who live in these other countries don't have those luxuries.
Right.
I remember Yakov Smirnov, was talking about, that you could take, I'll probably murder this, but, he said you could take chocolate and water and you could make chocolate, hot chocolate. And
Mhm.
then he said you could take water and baby powder and make, well, I mean, it didn't work out, but he said, this is America. This is the wonderful thing about America is that you have the opportunity to make anything that you want, to have anything you want. The old, once again, I must be hungry. Burger King, have it your way. You deserve a break today. All of these things come in America. And so I'm thankful that we have this opportunity to celebrate the present, but also we have the opportunity to look forward to a promising future. What does the next 250 years look like in America?
Yeah, I was again talking to someone this morning. I don't know why today has become my reference point, but I've had a lot of conversations today, Chris. It was Friday and I wasn't really in productive mood. So, um,
Everybody wants to come talk to you. Doesn't that make you feel so popular and so wanted?
sometimes it just depends on what they want to talk about. But I was like, this is for a lot of people, this is, you know, I was alive in 1776. I'm old, but I'm not that old. I was alive in 1976, but I was way too young to know anything about what was, going on. So
Right.
250, the 250th anniversary is a big deal. But think, Chris, in 25 years, we'll be at the 275th anniversary of the Constitution. We got 25 more years before we get to think about, the past in the way we're thinking about it here with the 250th. But the question I sort of posed was, what will the country be like in 25 years when I'm in my 70s? What will the country be like? Will we still have a Chick-fil-A on every corner? Or are we sort of having forgotten the past? Are we sort of doomed to repeat some of the darker mistakes of the past?
And I do think
Ooh,
that it
that went negative real fast, didn't it?
well, and I think, but we're in a critical moment.
Yeah.
We're not in a 1776 moment per se, but we're in a 1970s kind of moment where you have a nation that is divided. And dare I say that I don't really know if they all know what they're divided against or
Right.
for. And I do think that I teach a course on society and technology in society and the impact that it has for good or for bad. And it's interesting to hear students as they have to debate the role of technology. And in 17, I'll go back to 1776, and the technology that they had was the mighty pen and how or the quill, if you will,
Yeah.
but writing words down in the beginning of pamphlets and how that was how you told the story. And then I look in 2026, and it is still in some essence the power of the pen, though it might be an Apple pen that is connected to a keyboard, which is connected to social media. And then you can have a pen that is technically not yours, but it is writing for you and it is trying to convey your thoughts through artificial intelligence. And so you have all of these things that are playing into this. So the question is, what will the next 25 years look like? It depends on how people want it to look like. I mean, with the advent of technology and what are we writing and what are we saying and what will be our story is a good way to really look at that.
Yeah. Nothing is guaranteed. We look back, you mentioned the 60s and the 70s. We look back at that time and we know how things turned out, and we look at the world wars and we know how things turned out. And we look at the Civil War, or we look at the War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, and we know how things turned out. What we've got to remember is at this moment in time, we don't know how things are going to turn out. So that's why it's important for, I think, Americans to take this moment, the 250th anniversary of the nation, to take this moment and say, okay, where do we want to be at the 275th anniversary? Where do we want to be at the 300th year anniversary, which I will not be here to see? Where do we want to be as a nation at those milestones, and what do we need to do to get there? And yes, Chris, we are a deeply divided nation. I think it's probably been the 1960s, 1970s when we were as divided as we are now. But I will tell you what gives me hope about that is we were also very divided coming out of the Civil War, but things eventually calmed down. Not to say that everything, anybody who studies political history, presidential history knows it's always a rocky waters, but the nation sort of found an equilibrium. And then, of course, you get into the 20th century with the wars and all of that was going on. You look again also at the Revolutionary War, again, a time when the nation was deeply divided. But things between the people who supported the revolution, the people who didn't support the revolution, and coming out of that and all the debates over the Constitution, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, the nation found an equilibrium. So that I think is showing us that history, yeah, history is dependent on what people do and the decisions people make. But history also shows us that things can get better if we only, as a collective, try.
It reminds me of the Broadway show Hamilton. I know we reference that a lot on this podcast, but the very, very last song of Hamilton is where Eliza basically spends the remainder of the show talking about the events after Hamilton's death. She talks about the founding of the first private orphanage in New York City. Talks about the contributions that come for the Washington Monument, and she talks about famous people in history that will come out, like Washington and Jefferson, and she begins talking about Alexander Hamilton's writings. And the one thing she says is she can't imagine, because he was a vociferous writer. He wrote and wrote and wrote. And she said he writes like he's running out of time.
Yeah.
And the story ends, the play ends with a song that I think speaks to this, and it's who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And you look at that and you think about those who have lived and those who have died and those who are living. And when you think about America 250, the question is, who will tell our story? And what story will they tell? Is it a story that we are living as if we are running out of time? Or is it a story of us cherishing the freedoms and the time that we have to live in the United States of America 250 years later? We have all year to answer that question, but also to live out that question.
Great way to end the podcast, Chris. Very important thoughts as we look at America's 250. Of course, we got a long way to go. It's only February 2026, and I'm sure July is going to be a very big month with celebrations both in at, private homes and neighborhoods, but also at the large estates and government. Thinking about the museums, Mount Vernon, those type of places. It's going to be a very big year, and July will be a very big month. Folks, we do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we ask you to share this episode with your family and friends. Give us a like on whatever platform you are listening. Our YouTube audience is growing, and we are appreciative of that. And we hope you will continue to listen on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever. But we are very excited about it, the growth of our YouTube audience in recent months. So until next time, I'm Ray,
I'm Chris.
and we will talk to you later.